Thank you, Your Eminences. Fathers, ladies and gentlemen, I will try to prove today that the problem of woke culture and of censorship, which has become a tyranny of the minority, is based not only on the postmodernism movement, which is the known sociologist theory that says that there's no truth and that everything is relative. But of course, it commenced from meta-Marxism or neo-Marxism with Jean-Paul Sartre, Foucault, Weil, and they first, on a level of political theory, had in fact said that the conscious is above nature, so you are whatever you feel you are. Thus, you don't have any yet natural determinations or designations. It is conscious against nature, but this is where the surprise comes in. That the problem of woke culture commences a lot earlier from a heresy. It starts from the heresy of Gnosticism, not only on the 4th century, but a lot earlier, in fact, and in the apocryphal Gospels, where they actually talk about the hermaphrodite God. And the heresy of Gnosticism focused greatly on this hermaphrodite of both male and female, and that was considered to be a way of salvation. In Thomas's apocryphal Gospel, apparently Christ said to Martha that you will be saved only if you become a man. And a bit further down, it teaches that the same holds true for men, that they will be saved if they change gender. So let's not be surprised. This issue about the hermaphrodite God, which has been documented through the apocryphal tradition, is conveyed in the post-Marxist movements. Jean-Paul Sartre, Foucault. Foucault wrote 3 volumes about human sexuality, and he says exactly this, that the woke culture says that you are what you feel. Gender, everything is a social construct. As of the 60s, this French intellect goes to the US and comes back to us here with the mantle of neoliberalism. But of course, we see that they were, in fact, vanquished in the elections in the States. So postmodernism, as a theory that destroys and says that it is the individual that is above the community. It's not the community that, in fact, is above the individual. So there's no intersubjectivity, there's no truth. Even when Christ talks about the truth in his face, that I am the truth, has absolutely no bearing for the modernists, and they even exercise criticism. So we see there is a great transition from one set of values to the other, and there is a rapid speed in which there is a swing from one experience to the other. But we see that we're going in a post-religious level to a syncretism of doctrines. And this is something that we've also seen in the Christian heresies. From a Christian point of view, the problem of syncretism existed also in ancient times. So we see that here we have the reason of the self-constructing person. So that is, in fact, the self-ordained Homus Dei, and the answer of Damascus. So we don't want a man that has been deified, but we want the God that has become human. So before we go into that, we have to go on to the privatization of religiosity. This is what the postmodernists say. And of course, the woke culture, the spiritual child, says that also. And we will go to the rather turbid waters of para-religion. So there we'll see that with these postmodern preconditions, woke culture will awaken from the Christian liturgy of the Middle Ages. And this will be done in two ways. With the attempt to cancel the well-known cancel culture, which is associated with woke culture, which means against any established organization of society. But the second manner in which they're going to achieve this is through the censorship of political correctness, which is becoming a totalitarian and postmodern Puritanism, which will be aided and abetted in this by the abuse of the anti-racist law, the extreme rightism. It's not rights, it's rightism. And we see that there is slander, the charges with respect to racist hate speech. The woke agenda attempts to cancel the identity-related religious beliefs. On the other hand, it doesn't talk about the violation of human rights in Islam and does not criticize them, with the oppression of women in Iran being one such example. The woke agenda tries here to promote the limitless migration, and it in fact rejects identities, and it in fact pushes this tendency of rightism. So we see that this is a new stance of life. Manichaism. We see the good and the non-violent woke culture is going against the establishment. So the Manichaean dualism of the heresy that St. Augustinus was in fact influenced, and he brought it unknowingly to his new religious identity, is in fact conveyed through the woke culture. So that means in many groups of the United States of America, it is claimed that we must say Happy Holidays, not Merry Christmas. We saw this also in Europe, but there was resistance in Europe. And they will tell us that we should avoid making a compliment because we are, in fact, oppressing the person who is being praised. And the flattering of a beautiful woman is risky because it hides sexism. That means the male authority, and it's derogatory towards women. And the French philosopher Bruckner will say that in the States, young people don't look at each other in the eyes. They look down to the ground, so they're not, in fact, charged with sexual harassment. There are many aspects that have to be examined. We have to rewrite history. They allege that we don't have two sexes. We have to tear down the sculptures if the person supported colonialism, or even there is the suspicion that they did. And ancient Greeks should not be taught because they have intense sexism within them. They are derogatory towards women, and they give, in fact, a bad example. There's also disrupt text in the state, which, in fact, talks out against classical books, Homer, Fitzgerald. So we have a new witch hunt, which leads to this new puritanical history and elitism. And this is, in fact, an activism that is 360 degrees in terms of political correctness. We see that filmmakers and authors of books are excluded because their statements with respect to the existence of the woman's sex is considered to be transphobic. As Ulrich Beck, a great sociologist, said, in the public sphere, we're trying to give a new meaning to what is good and evil, desired and unaccepted, and desirable, that means unaccepted. And he will say that when it comes to the stage of public discourse and the dilemmas that are put, even conflictual initiatives, we see that these have to do with acceptance or not of ancient religious practices such as circumcision and the dietary practices of Eastern religions. The postmodernism values go against the Christian and Western values. We see there are a lot of voices in favor of cancel culture. However, we saw the results of elections that have resisted them. We see geopolitical and social reasons have made voters resist and withstand this globalized way of seeing things. Historical reasons, because we see that this shows a lack of acceptance of previous conditions and reasons. Religious regions that do away with a uniformity, cultural, and so on and so forth. The Declaration of Paris. In May 2017, there was a philosophical intervention of intellectuals from the whole of Europe, whose purpose was to, in fact, withstand the woke culture and political correctness rationale. This was published in all languages. The characteristic of this declaration, in order for me to come to an end, is that we must return to the traditional principles and values. If we want to talk about the future of Europe, we need to look at the key pillar of Europe, which is Christianity. And the other two is ancient Greek and Roman law. And at one point, we have to honor our Christian roots. And when it boils down to it, must return even to the new reasoning of education, which is not simply learning technocratic issues, but it is also a way of educating the spirit. The nation state is a guarantor of Europe and not the destructuring of the states. Multicultural approaches have failed. This is what Angela Merkel has said since 2004, because of the ghettoization of the Islamic migrants or Muslim migrants that don't actually integrate in the countries that host them. And we have the deregulation of the nation state, and because of globalization, the rich become richer and the poor become poorer. Indeed, we must, in order to come to a close, we must support that the Declaration of Paris, withstanding the oppression of the political elite, openly supports the Europe of nations and religions that will be based, that is, on Christianity, democratic values, and do away with political correctness and woke culture based on a culture of people who believe. So these societies must, in fact, have, a parallel path of coexistence in order to make certain that they exist in a universal world, but not in a uniform globalized world. Europe will find its geopolitical place so that it will be a responsible alternative to the soulless option of a market and shallow entertainment. Bread and spectacles do not suffice. Christianity shall be the true future of Europe. Thank you very much.